Hey, third grade. All right, so we are going to review for your history test tomorrow that you'll be already set to go. It'll be an easy one, I feel, because I know you know your stuff already. But what you need to do, because I can't just ask questions because that's boring. So what you need to do is you need to pick 4 corners. I would write it out. I think it's just gonna be easier. So get out, like I said, 3x5 cards, just pieces of paper, rip them up, whatever, into 4, but get to 4 corners of your room. So say in corner 1, you have John Glenn. Corner 2, you have Neil Armstrong. Corner 3, you have Ronald Reagan. And corner 4, you have Daniel Chappie James. Okay? So you're gonna choose the 4 corners in your room, in your house or room or wherever you are, and put a name in each of those. Okay? I'm going to ask questions. You're going to have to run and get in the corner of whoever I'm talking about, whether it's John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, Ronald Reagan, or Chappie James, before I say the answer, okay? I'll give you time to get, because it shouldn't be this as close as I am. I'm just kind of in the camera doing 4 corners, but you have 4 nice big corners in your house or room or wherever. So 4 corners, and you're gonna listen, and I'm gonna ask some questions, and you're gonna try to get to that spot before I give the answer. All right, so be listening carefully, paying attention, and see if you can beat me, okay? Because, yeah, we'll just see. Who served as governor of California for 8 years? Ronald Reagan. Did you get that? I probably should give you a little bit longer, but like I said, my camera is smaller, so I can get there quicker. Ronald Reagan served as governor of California for 8 years. Good. Who took flying lessons before he graduated from college? John Glenn. Did you get that? John Glenn took flying lessons before he graduated from college. Who became a pilot and flew in both World War II and the Korean War? It's John Glenn again. All right, so hopefully you got that. John Glenn was a pilot, flew in World War II and the Korean War. Let's see. Sorry, let me get things moving here. Who flew to the moon? Yes, Neil Armstrong. Very good. He was the one that was on the moon. Who convinced a college president to give him a scholarship? Kind of easy. Did I beat you? Ronald Reagan. Yes, Ronald Reagan. Let's see. 101 combat missions in the Korean War. 101 combat. Yes. Daniel Chappie James. Hopefully you got that. He flew 101 missions in the Korean War, and then we also said there were like 78 or something. What was it? 78 combat missions in the Vietnam War. So that's 179 missions in all. 179 missions in all. Against communism. I shouldn't even give you any time for that. Ronald Reagan, right, was against communism. Very good. Let's see. Oldest man in space. Yes, did you get John Glenn? John Glenn. Super. Dutch. Yes, I beat you. I know I did. Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was Dutch. Let's see. Who commanded the Gemini 8? The Gemini 8. Who commanded that? Gemini 8. Good. Hopefully you got that one. That was Neil Armstrong. I'm trying to think of how to... let me think of how to word it. Flight instructor for 99th Pursuit Squadron. Yes. Wait, where am I going? Daniel, you beat me. I know you did. All right, fine. You beat me because I was going in the wrong direction. Daniel Chappie James was flight instructor for the 99th Pursuit Squadron. Actor. That was way too easy, right? Ronald Reagan. Good. Who commanded the Apollo 11? Who commanded the Apollo 11? Yeah, I gave you some time, but you should already know. Neil Armstrong. Very good. Let's see. Who became a test pilot? Who became a test pilot in California? That is also Neil Armstrong. So if anything, it would be Neil Armstrong and John Glenn that you've got to be like focused on because they're very similar, but hopefully you'll recognize that. Chosen to be one of the first astronauts. John Glenn. Remember, John Glenn was chosen to be one of the first astronauts. Now, he wasn't the first man in space or even the second man in space. He had to wait for the third space mission before he was able to get into space. But he was one of the first astronauts that was chosen. Who was given an 11th commandment? Yes, that was too easy. What was the 11th commandment? Thou shalt not quit. Okay. He was given that 11th commandment by his mother, who told her family and neighbors, because it was her kids and neighbors' kids that she was watching and teaching at the time, but thou shalt not quit. Told Mr. Gorbachev to tear down the wall. Yes, you know, it's Ronald Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan told Mikhail Gorbachev. Where was that wall? Berlin, Germany. Very good. Berlin, Germany. Let's see. Lived during the Great Depression. That's also Ronald Reagan. Yes. Orbited the Earth 3 times in about 5 hours. Yes, that is John Glenn. He orbited the Earth 3 times in about 5 hours. Served in 3 wars: Korean, World War II, and Vietnam War. You get that? Daniel Chappie James served in 3 wars: Korean, Vietnam, and World War II. Jelly beans. That was too easy. Yes, Ronald Reagan loved jelly beans. Very good. Let's see. flew a plane at 725 miles an hour across the United States? John Glenn. Yes, John Glenn flew a plane 720 miles an hour across the United States. Appointed the first female justice to Supreme Court. Yep, Ronald Reagan appointed the first female justice to the Supreme Court, and her name? Come on. Sandra Day O'Connor. Good, I heard some of you get that. Sandra Day O'Connor was the name, the first female Supreme Court justice. Good. Let's see. All right, it's just too easy, but 4-star general. Yes, Daniel Chappie James became a 4-star general. People didn't think he would even be a general, but he became a 4-star general. Brought rocks and soil back to Earth. I know that's kind of a vague question, but yes, Neil Armstrong brought rocks and soil from the moon back to Earth. Yes. U.S. Senator for 25 years. Who was a U.S. Senator for 25 years? Did you get that? John Glenn, remember? He had done his space mission and had done his orbit around the Earth and was praised and lauded and whatever, and wanted to go back into space, but John F. Kennedy, the president at the time, said, no, we need to keep you safe. You're a national hero, like you're a treasure. We don't want you doing any more dangerous missions. And so he wasn't able to go back into space, so he became a U.S. Senator for 25 years, and then was able to go back at the age of 77, so make sure you keep that in your mind, because I might ask that in a little bit. Was able to go back up into space as the oldest man. All right, let's see. His sister helped him attend college. Did you get it? Daniel Chappie James. Chappie James's sister was the one who helped him to go to college. Made training videos for the military during World War II. Made training videos for the military during World War II. Did you get it? Ronald Reagan made those training videos. Good. Because he went from being an actor to going into the military, and he made those training videos. Let's see. Flew the X-15 hypersonic jet. The X-15, who flew the X-15 hypersonic jet? That was Neil Armstrong. Hopefully you got that. How fast could that jet fly? Do you remember? That X-15 supersonic jet could fly 4,000 miles per hour. We were excited when John Glenn went 725 miles an hour across the United States, but this X-15 supersonic jet in California was able to go 4,000 miles an hour. Whose plane was shot down in the Korean War? Whose plane was shot down in the Korean War? That is also Neil Armstrong. And remember, that plane was shot down, but what happened? He was rescued by American troops. Thankfully, he was safe from any harm. So he was able to be saved. The great communicator. Yeah, I should have moved quicker for that one because I know some of you probably beat me on that one. Great communicator is Ronald Reagan. He was known for his great speaking abilities, and so they called him the nickname Great Communicator. Part of the Tuskegee Airmen, obviously, that would be Daniel Chappie James. What were the Tuskegee Airmen known for? Remember, they're known for their strength in the face of danger. Yes, strength in the face of danger. Because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, this person enlisted in the Navy, excuse me. Who enlisted in the military, in the Navy, because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor? That was John Glenn. So John Glenn became a Navy military man because of that bombing of Pearl Harbor. All right. Who loved airplanes? You better do all three. You should be doing for John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, and Chappie James. These men, as young boys, loved airplanes, and that's why they became pilots. And then not just pilots, but also with John Glenn and Neil Armstrong, they went up into space as some of the first men to do some certain things in space, whether it be orbiting the Earth. The first one to orbit the Earth was John Glenn, and then to go to the moon. Sorry, Neil Armstrong. So that's good. Hopefully you got those down. So the first American to orbit the Earth is John Glenn. Let's see. I think we're pretty much covered with everything almost. I feel like saved the lives of 77 people as a lifeguard. Yes, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan saved the lives of 77 people as a lifeguard. I feel like that's it. Oh, has a flight academy in Pensacola named after him. Chappie James, very good. So the thing that I want you to be really focused on, because there was a lot of different people in different wars, you know, with the Korean War, with World War II, the Vietnam War, kind of getting your mind on, like, you know, okay, so John Glenn, World War II and the Korean War, he served in both of those. Then with Neil Armstrong was in the Korean War as a fighter pilot in the Korean War. Ronald Reagan did training videos, acted in training videos in the Army during his military time. And then Daniel Chappie James was World War II, Vietnam War, and the Korean War. So if you can keep those in your mind so that you don't get those mixed up. And then just go through John Glenn, knowing he enlisted in the military because of Pearl Harbor, took flying lessons before he graduated from college, set the speed for the speed record for the fastest flight across the United States, 725. That was the one that we talked about. He was the first American to orbit the Earth. After serving in the Navy, became a senator, not a governor, a senator. Then Neil Armstrong was the one that piloted the Gemini 8. He also was the one, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins were the ones that were in Apollo 11. And then from Apollo 11, they had a little ship that broke off, that was not broke off, but that came off, that was called the Eagle. The Eagle is what touched down on the moon. They stayed on the moon for 2.5 hours, collected rocks and soil, brought it back to Earth. Yeah, those were the biggest things that and then just don't forget the International Space Station that Neil Armstrong was given the Medal of Freedom. And then, because most of the stuff about Ronald Reagan, I think you'll remember, just remember Sandra Day O'Connor, the Berlin Wall, and then with Daniel Chappie James, I think that was, easy stuff to remember as well, that he did serve in the Air Force, Tuskegee Airmen, know about those, his combat missions, that he became a 4-star general, even though people thought he wouldn't be. Yeah, so think those things through, study those chapters over. Hope this was like just a fun review for you. I wish it kind of went a little bit faster. Sorry, it's a little slow, but hopefully you got some of those thoughts and things down so you can solidify those in your mind. Go back over these so you'll know it really well and be ready for that test tomorrow. I know you can do it because you're super, super smart. That'll be your last test for history, so do it well, okay? Be prepared and do it well. All right, I'm proud of you, and I want you to keep going strong because you're my 3rd graders. I've watched you all year do great things and make great strides, so keep striving to the end. We're almost there. Love you. See you. Bye.